Hey, nutritionally bankrupt weirdos. So I need you to sit with this thought for a second. Now imagine that somewhere, at some point in human history, a person looked at something grossly rotting, moving, or actively producing gas and said, "Yeah, I'm gonna devour that." Not out of desperation, not because the crops are toast, just vibes. And today we're doing 4 of those moments. 4 foods so aggressively wrong that if aliens found them in our fridges, they'd cancel first contact and just leave a note that says, "Not yet." Number 4. Hákarl. This is Icelandic fermented Greenland shark, and I need you to understand, the starting material here is a shark that is functionally toxic when fresh. It's got so much urea and trimethylamine oxide in its flesh that if you just grilled it up and ate it, you'd get the marine biology equivalent of a hangover from a blood alcohol content of, yes. I can't imagine how people thought this could be edible. Wait till you hear the process, how people made it edible. So the historical fix was, bury it in a shallow pit lined with gravel. Let your own body weight press the fluids out for 6 to 12 weeks, then hang it to dry for months. The result smells, and I'm quoting actual travel writers here, like a gym sock that's been marinating in a bottle of wax. Anthony Bourdain called it the single worst thing he'd ever eaten, and this is a man who ate a still-beating cobra heart on camera. That's the bar. Hákarl cleared it, downward. How do you even discover that? My working theory? Some Viking shark went bad. He was too broke or too stubborn to throw it out, buried it in the ground either to hide the smell or hide the evidence, forgot about it for 2 months because Iceland in the 800s did not have a lot of calendar apps. One day, his wife threw him out without giving him anything
for eating.
And that guy suddenly remembered he had a shark buried underground and dug it back up, starving, and instead of admitting defeat, just said, "No, this is fine now, actually," out loud, to himself, alone. And a nation agreed with him. That's not cuisine, that's Stockholm Syndrome with a side of gravel. Number 3. Casu Marzu. Sardinian sheep's milk cheese, except the defining ingredient isn't the sheep's milk, it's the live insect larvae, specifically cheese fly maggots, that are deliberately introduced into the wheel so their digestive enzymes break the fat down into a soft, borderline liquid paste. The larvae are alive when you eat it. Some people eat it with the larvae still moving. Can you imagine? Sardinians do that. Some people wait for the larvae to die first, which, congratulations, you've just downgraded from eating live maggots to eating recently deceased maggots. Incredible glow-up. It's actually been technically illegal to sell in the EU multiple times over food safety concerns, and there are documented cases of the larvae surviving stomach acid and causing intestinal problems, which is a sentence that should end any food's PR campaign immediately. And yet here we are, it's a delicacy. People smuggle it. The origin story pretty much has to be, a shepherd left a wheel of cheese out too long, flies got to it, and instead of the horror response of a normal person, he had the horror response of a chemist. He looked at cheese actively being eaten alive by insects and thought, interesting texture change, instead of, I need to leave this country. That's not an accident. That's a guy who peer-reviewed his own regret. Number 2. Century egg, also called thousand-year egg, which is already lying to you twice in the name, because it's neither 1,000 years old, nor, thankfully, a century. It's cured for weeks to months in a mixture of clay, ash, salt, quicklime, and rice hulls, and the alkaline environment breaks the proteins down until the white turns a translucent dark brown-black, almost like a gemstone, and the yolk goes this deep gray-green with a texture somewhere between custard and existential dread. The smell is sulfurous, strongly ammonia-forward, similar to what a hard-boiled egg would smell like if it had unresolved anger issues. And there was a whole 2014 wave of American food bloggers calling it the world's most disgusting food, purely off the visual, before even tasting it, which is genuinely impressive. An egg that offends you optically first. And worst of them all, number 1. Surströmming. Swedish fermented Baltic herring, canned before the fermentation process is even finished, which means the can keeps fermenting and building up gas pressure for months, to the point where airlines have literally banned it as checked luggage because the cans have been known to explode from internal pressure. When you open it, and tradition says you open it underwater in a bucket specifically to contain the smell, it releases a gas that food scientists have chemically compared to rotten eggs, vinegar, and a burnt match had a baby that also happened to be dying. There have been actual scientific studies ranking it as one of the smelliest foods on Earth by measurable compound concentration, beating out things like Limburger cheese by a significant margin. People still eat this, on purpose, as a summer tradition, with friends, willingly. How is it even possible? Ich hab keine Idee. Here's my discovery theory for this one, and it's honestly the most Scandinavian thing I can imagine. Sometime in the 16th century, Sweden ran short on salt for proper preservation, so people cut corners on their herring brine. The fish fermented instead of just curing. Someone opened the barrel expecting failure, smelled the actual apocalypse, and rather than admitting the batch was ruined and eating the loss, a nation collectively decided, no, we meant to do that, and turned economic necessity into a personality trait. That's not tradition. That's 400 years of nobody wanting to be the first to say, actually, this is bad. And that's the pattern across every single one of these. Nobody sat down and designed Casu Marzu or Hákarl on purpose. Somebody's food went wrong. They were too broke, too cold, too stubborn, or they got a beating from their wives to throw it out. And rather than admit defeat, they just aggressively rebranded failure as cuisine.